of Family Source Consultants, and we are excited to talk all about the support in your family building journey. In this heartfelt episode of the Bringing Dreams and Miracles Together podcast, we welcome Joey Guzman-Kuffel, licensed marriage and family therapist and founder of Counseling with Joey and Associates, alongside our very own client development advisor, Chris Gao. They explore the essential role of emotional and mental health support throughout the family building journey, and whether you're an intended parent, a surrogate, or an egg donor, this is a must listen. Joey discusses what healthy support systems look like, how to find the right professionals, and the value of working with compassionate experts who understand the unique challenges and emotions that come with third-party reproduction. This episode is a reminder that while the path to parenthood is deeply meaningful, it can also be complex, and you don't have to navigate it alone.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Family Source Consultants podcast. My name is Chris Gao. I'm the Business and Client Relations Advisor at Family Source Consultants. In this episode, we will be talking about the importance of mental health counseling during your family building journey. Whether you are going through IVF as an intended parent, or you are, going through surrogacy as a surrogate, or as an egg donor, it's very important for everyone to have the resource and to know um, when to ask for help when they feel like they need the mental support. We have the honor to have a very special guest joining us today. Please welcome Joy from Counseling with Joy and Associates. Hello, Joy. How are you?
Hey there, Chris. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. It's our pleasure to have you here. You have been, I know this is your story to tell, but you went through you went through your own family building journey, and now you're a professional helping so many other intended parents and surrogates and egg donors with their own mental health needs. And can you please introduce yourself and your service and your company to us before we get into the discussion?
Absolutely. Thank you, Chris, for having me. So, my name is Joey Guzman-Kuffel, and I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I'm also a two-time dad through surrogacy. And so, it was my experience with surrogacy that really led me to found Counseling with Joey and Associates. Counseling with Joey and Associates provides support to everyone who's building their family through surrogacy, and even support those that are wanting to help those that want to build their family through surrogacy. So, gestational carriers, egg donors, sperm donors, intended parents, we support all. So it's a pleasure to be here today.
Awesome. I think, I just wanted to add that, for people who are looking into going through surrogacy, especially intended parents, and I think a lot of people know from their research that the surrogate will need to go through a psychological evaluation, and intended parents will need to go through some sort of psychological evaluation or counseling upfront as well. And people more look at it as, okay, I need to be evaluated to make sure I'm in I'm in a good mental state to do this at my surrogate as well. But I think what people don't often think about it is the emotional support, the mental health support they potentially need through this process as well. It's a lot more than just the evaluation to make sure you are starting the process in a good mental health state. But just because of the complicity of the process, and there may be some ups and downs or emotional challenges during this process, and I think it is just so important that there are professionals like you out there looking out for our intended parents and just being there for them whenever they need you.
Yeah. Emotional support is a huge piece of your family building process because
Mhm.
surrogacy, IVF, is so emotionally and psychologically demanding that
Absolutely.
you will need emotional support. You will need to understand what that support might look like for you when you're going through your family building journey. And so
Mhm.
when you meet with a mental health provider, you will have information that will lead you to understand the importance of emotional support. How do you get that
Right.
emotional support? And so
Right.
again, emotional support is highly important when you're building your family through third party or assisted reproduction.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have prepared a few questions that we receive from intended parents, from surrogates, from egg donors. These are just very popular questions from from them, and I think you are the perfect person to address these questions today. So like more people will have the information and will have access to to your knowledge. The first one is just we kind of already touched on it. Why is emotional support so critical during family building journey, and whether you're an intended parent, a surrogate, or egg donor? And also, I think a lot of intended parents may not think about this for their surrogate or for their egg donor. They're like, it's natural people think about things from their own perspective, and they may understand, okay, maybe I need emotional support throughout the journey, but it's also important for the surrogate and egg donor to have access to emotional support as well. Can you just walk us through like why it is so crucial and important?
Sure. So, like I mentioned before, surrogacy, IVF, egg donation, sperm donation, all of these types of processes for family building
Mm-hmm.
can be emotionally and psychologically demanding for all
Mm-hmm.
parties. And so,
Right.
it's important to understand that support is available. And it's
Mm-hmm.
important to understand that it can be an emotional process. So, for
Yes.
example, the surrogate and the egg donor, sperm donor, their experience can vary a little bit from the intended parent. When we're talking about
Mm-hmm.
surrogate and egg donors, sperm donors, the experiences can be physically and emotionally, challenging for them when
Mm-hmm.
they're undergoing their hormone medication treatment process that can take a toll on
Absolutely.
their emotions and take a toll on the body.
Mhm.
We're talking about a surrogate. There's emotional challenges of carrying a child, um,
Yes.
and so when we're talking about intended parents, you know
Mhm.
you know, and I'll include myself in this piece here is that we can, experience emotional strain of having to rely on someone else to carry your child. There's like this lack of control
Mhm.
that we have, like we're relinquishing control to somebody else to carry our child.
Absolutely.
Not to mention
Right.
that, also, the person that's going to be carrying our child, we have little time of knowing each other.
Mhm.
And so we really have to place a lot of trust in this one individual, to carry the pregnancy and to keep our child safe. And there could be a lot of emotional challenges with that. Um,
Mhm.
and so there's a lot more that goes into this process that is very
Mhm.
emotional and psychologically driven. And so that's why
Yes.
emotional support is so important. That's why it's important to understand that all parties are
Mhm.
emotionally ready to take on this experience because there's a
Mhm.
lot that comes with it.
Right, right. And also, as much as we all wish every single journey is smooth as can be, as perfect as can be, the reality is there may be some roadblocks and there may be some hiccups throughout the journey. And when it happens, we want the parents to be prepared. We want the surrogates and egg donors to be prepared as well. And the first thing is to be mentally prepared. Okay, this is happening and it's not what we all want to see, but it's here, and we'll work together to solve this problem. And again, it's important to have the mental, how do I say it? My gosh, I'm just
The
trying to think of
preparation.
the preparation. Thank you. The mental preparation in advance. And I believe they can only get it by talking to professional, talking to someone who is so experienced in this area and who is able to guide them. Like no one can predict what is going to happen, but what we can do is to prepare them mentally. Hey, if something happens that we don't expect, it's okay. And like, you may feel anxious, but it's okay because a lot of people experience that as well. And also, when that does happen, you're there to support them.
Yeah. Every individual who goes through family building, through surrogacy, third party assisted
Mhm.
reproduction, has to go through some type of mental, emotional preparation. They each have their own individual meetings with a
Right.
mental health
Right.
provider. For surrogates and gamete donors, they go through an evaluation and sometimes
Hmm.
implications counseling to
Right.
have that preparation for their
Yep.
journey. Intended
Mhm.
parents go through a psychoeducational consultation to be able to
Mhm.
understand what are some of the things that they may be confronted with to, again, emotionally prepare for that
Right.
journey. And
Mhm.
so through these meetings that they have with mental health providers, you're also provided education, information, so that everyone can understand what the
Mhm.
process is. Because the goal of
Yep.
meeting with a mental health provider is to also assure that these individuals can provide fully informed consent
Right.
about what they're doing. Um,
Mhm.
and so you people get education so that they can make informed decisions and so that they can be emotionally prepared for any roadblock or setback that they may have. Building your
Mhm.
family through assisted reproduction is no walk in the park. And having been through it myself, the journeys went as smooth as can be, but there was setbacks that
Yeah.
really, caused me to think about, our decisions, that really allowed me to experience some emotions that I wasn't expecting to experience.
Yeah.
My partner, my spouse, and I, we experienced loss during our
Mm.
journeys,
Mhm.
and so had I not had time to speak to a counselor before that, it may
Mhm.
have hit me a lot harder than what the experience was. Now,
Absolutely.
meeting with the mental health provider and getting emotionally prepared doesn't mean that you're not going to feel pain, that you're not going to feel sadness or anxiety. Those are very normal things to feel depending on what
Mhm.
your situation is, but
Mhm.
it can lessen the intensity by understanding this is something that we've talked about. We understand, how we might react or what decisions we might make if we are in this specific situation. A lot of the times, when we're talking about, for example, like a miscarriage or an unsuccessful embryo transfer, or having to have make a decision about termination of pregnancy, all of these type of scenarios are going to elicit some really strong emotions. And so
Right.
having conversations with a mental health provider about what this might look like for me, for my partner, my spouse, and what it means
Mhm.
for us together,
Mhm.
is important to talk about and understand, so that if we are confronted with that, we're not being blindsided. There's already, the idea that we've talked about this. Now, how are
Right.
we going to move forward with this?
Right. Right. Yeah, absolutely. I think, actually I think you already um, touched on the next question I have, which is also a very, very common question intended parents ask. What are some of the emotional or psychological challenges people face during this process? And I really, really appreciate that you sharing your own story. You sharing your own challenge during the process. And I think, that really means a lot to us, and it means a lot for our, listeners out there to hear that even you, a professional in this field, still had to, experience that. And the truth is that no one can really predict how a journey is going to go. And it is just so important that you have the mental preparation. So, on top of the examples you already give us, are there any other examples or just common emotional challenges that you see people face a lot during this process?
Yeah, well, to begin with, anxiety is something that's very present, and it's very also
Okay.
normal. Again, we talked about earlier
Mm,
about like a lack of control. I think both
hmm.
parties, when we're talking about a gestational carrier and the
Right.
intended parents, both parties have to, relinquish control to a certain degree that may not feel
Absolutely.
very comforting when they're going through
Mm-hmm.
this journey, right? So
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of, restrictions and limitations, to the pregnancy when it comes to the gestational carrier that she may have not had with her own pregnancy. With her own
Mm-hmm.
pregnancy, she was able to make decisions on, for her own because it was her pregnancy.
Right.
Now she's
Yeah,
carrying
absolutely.
a child for somebody else. It's somebody else's pregnancy, and so they may be
Mm-hmm.
the ones to make the decisions, and that
Yes.
might be, anxiety provoking to a gestational carrier. Not to mention
Mhm.
that for a gestational carrier, there's also this, possibility of them experiencing, attachment to
Mhm.
the baby that they're carrying, a certain bond, and
Right.
what that might bring up for her when thinking
Mhm.
about, when the journey ends, and what closure looks like.
Yeah.
For intended parents, again, the lack of control, not having the pregnancy in their home, within their vicinity at times, because sometimes the gestational carrier is on the other side of the country. And
Mhm.
so, understanding that you're not going to have full, control or access to the pregnancy can be
Mhm.
anxiety provoking. Um,
Right.
the other thing with intended parents is depending on what your experience has been coming into surrogacy and assisted
Mhm.
reproduction. There may have already been, an experience of different types of losses with
Yeah,
fertility,
absolutely.
miscarriages, not being able to get pregnant and having challenges. There's also
Mhm.
the part where intended parents or recipient parents have to address grief and loss
Mhm. Yeah.
and the grief can come in so many different shapes and ways because there's the grief of like the I the grieving the loss of what their vision was of how they were going to have their family, and then
Mhm.
also the losses that they may have already had while trying to build their family through alternative ways,
Right.
and the grief that comes with not being able to carry your own child, and
Mhm.
so those types of things might be a very emotional challenge for intended parents.
Absolutely. I think you're 100% spot on. And there's something, you just mentioned, and I wanted to add a little bit more to that because, as an agency, we work with parents and we work with surrogates, work with donors all the time. And, something you mentioned about for intended parents, they are not gonna be able to see everything about like because the intended parent is not the one carrying the surrogate and they don't have the 100% of the control because surrogate is the one carrying it. And then on the other hand, for surrogates, they are carrying the pregnancy, but they're not carrying their own baby. So like they also don't have all of the control. And in fact, intended parents probably still have more control than surrogate does. And I think one thing I see pretty often is, it's completely reasonable that a lot of intended parents have concerns about them not being able to almost like monitor the surrogate or just like see how the pregnancy goes every single day. They're not able to see what the surrogate is eating every day. What the surrogate is doing. Is she getting enough sleep and is she stressed and how is work going for her? Like, there's so much they can't see and can't control. So their concern is how do I know the surrogate is doing her best to to look after my baby to make sure the pregnancy is going well. And then actually on the other hand, from the surrogate side, what I hear all the time is, surrogates say, I know this is not my baby. I am actually um doing better carrying someone else's baby than carrying my own because this is a much bigger responsibility than carrying my own because it's my own baby. And at the end of the day, I'm responsible for my own baby. If God forbid anything happens, obviously no one wants anything to happen to their own baby, to their pregnancy, or to anyone's pregnancy. But if anything happens, at least it's, the carrier wouldn't be responsible for another parent because that's her own child. But given there being a surrogate, a lot of times they keep saying, "I actually do feel a little bit anxious because I'm caring for someone else, and I know that I need to do even better than carrying my own." And that's just what an interesting dynamic. But they don't usually see that because intended parents are intended parents. They don't see what surrogates are going through. They don't know what goes through the surrogate's head. And we are just fortunate enough that we work with both sides and we see what they're going through and just, have a better understanding of their mental states.
Yeah. And this is another reason why mental health support is important,
Hmm.
or having a mental health provider, meet with all individuals, because you're also going to get an opportunity to walk through the expectations of what the relationship with the surrogate, the relationship with the intended parent can look like.
Absolutely.
Um,
Yes.
and because the truth of the matter is that, there has to be a level of trust that
Hmm.
has
Hmm.
to that people have to come in with
Right.
to be okay with this process. And that trust piece has to come in quickly because again, you
Hmm.
don't know this person, for a long time. You
Yep.
do a match meeting for a very short period of time, and then both parties
Right.
have to agree based on what they read on each other's profiles and their meeting if they would like to work together. So when you meet with a
Mhm.
mental health provider, you're providing an opportunity to explore the different dynamics that, and
Mhm.
the expectations of what that relationship might look like. And you
Mhm.
will also have the mental health provider be able to, answer any questions around any potential myths that exist within, the intended parent or the surrogate, preconceived notions that they may have about one or the other. And I
Right.
get to experience this a lot in my meetings with all individuals, that they tend
Mm.
to come in with these ideas of like, well, what if she wants to keep the baby, or
Mhm.
and that makes me not want to like have a relationship with her, and so I have to walk them through what we
Mhm.
see and what normally happens,
Right.
so that they can start to build a little bit of trust in what the process is as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we spent a lot of time talking about the challenges that intended parents and surrogates face or may face. What about egg donors? What are some of the, common emotional challenges you see egg donors face?
Yeah, with egg donors, when I meet with them, a lot of them are really wanting to help someone build their family. They also have expressed no interest in wanting to, you know, be that child's parent. They just want to help
Right.
someone build their
Yes,
family.
absolutely.
But one of the things that I've seen that can be emotionally challenging for them is the idea of like, oh, I've made this donation, but I haven't really
Mhm.
thought about what that looks like in the future. For
Mm.
example, if the donor conceived, children or people, are curious to know who this donor is and are
Mhm.
reaching out to the donor, um, you know, I haven't really thought about what that might be like for me emotionally. I don't know if I would be okay with that, or maybe I would be okay with it, but I don't know how I would feel. So
Mhm.
receiving emotional support through a mental health provider is important for egg donors, because it'll
Mhm.
also, help, the egg donor kind of have a walkthrough of like what it looks like for you today as you are
Right.
taking on this decision to donate
Right.
to help someone, but also like
Mm.
what is that going to look like for you in the future, when you have people reaching out to you, to understand who you are and to get more
Yes.
information on you. And not only that, but also what is it going to look like emotionally for their family when they do decide to have a family of their own, if they don't already have one.
Right.
Their children will
Absolutely.
have a genetic connection to the
Yeah.
donor conceived people. And
Right.
so what is that going to be like,
Mhm.
for their own children to
Right.
understand that
Right.
they have genetic connections to other people because of their
Mhm.
parents, donation.
Mhm.
And how does that affect the overall family system? And so
Right.
sometimes that might be like really challenging emotionally for someone to look at when they're having a
Mhm.
conversation with me initially. But it's really
Absolutely.
important to think about that, because the decision that
Yeah.
you make as an egg donor today
Right.
it isn't a one-time thing where like I'm done. Like
Yep.
this
Absolutely.
decision will follow you for the rest of your life, and not just you, but
Exactly.
it'll have an impact on the rest of your family.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially, most egg donors are relatively young in age, and just like you said, they may or may not have had children yet. They may or may not even have a partner yet, and they're making a decision that will obviously have an impact on their family, on their future families, and if they don't have a partner yet, when they meet someone, how do they start this conversation with that person? I donated my eggs to other people, and so there may be children running around in this world with my DNA, and are you okay with that? And these are definitely things they should be thinking about before making the decision to donate eggs.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to think about. Sometimes when I
Hmm.
meet with people for these types of interviews, a consultation or evaluation, and we're having these conversations,
Hmm.
this aspect hasn't been thought about like, oh,
Hmm.
so there's more to this. It's not just the emotional piece right now, but there's like a lot more
Right.
to come in the future.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
yes, and that's why having the appropriate emotional support within your own, environment is so important, as well as the mental health, emotional support that you receive from the mental health provider is also
Mm,
highly important.
okay. Well, so, we've been talking about how important the support system is, and how can you share a little bit about, like, how can someone identify if their current support system is strong enough or something is missing? What are the important elements for them to look at? Whether it's an intended parent, surrogate, or egg donor. Just because we tell them it's important to have the support, it's important to be supported, but how do they really know whether or not the support they have, say, around them in their family or in their friend group, and also like mental health professionals, is strong enough, they can, count on them, or there's important elements that are missing, they just don't know?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think that overall, like when we're thinking about like, how do we build our support system and how do we know like who should be our support system? I think we want to
Mhm.
start off by understanding like who is supportive of
Mm,
like you building your family through assisted reproduction, right? When we're looking at our family, our friends, the people that are closest to us, like what feedback are we getting back from these individuals? I
mhm.
think it's obvious that if you have family members who are opposed to you doing surrogacy or
Right.
donating your eggs or your sperm, or they're not very you know uh, supportive of you as the recipient parent receiving donor
Mm,
eggs or donor sperm, um, that's probably not going to be the best people to have around to
mm.
support you while you're going through the
Right.
journey. So
Right,
you definitely
absolutely.
want to surround yourself with people who are able to empathize with your experience to
Mhm.
you know just demonstrate support that they are able to hear you out.
Right.
And so I think you'll be able to identify like who you feel comfortable with and who you feel safe with. For example, for
Mm.
me, because this was very sensitive, I didn't know how certain this whole process was going to be for me and
Mhm,
and, and my
mhm.
husband, that
Right.
I chose to keep my support system small. I chose
Mhm.
to go to those who I really felt comfortable with and how I knew like how much they really wanted me to also have a family. And so because they were so excited for me to have a family
Right.
and I knew how important that was to me, like I took that as like this is great support. Like they're excited
Mhm.
as I am to build my
Right.
family. And so
Yes.
that's how I think you can tell whether if that is the right support for you or not. The other thing
Mhm.
is, you can look for individuals and communities outside of your own environment.
Mhm.
I fully, I strongly believe that, if you are able to go outside of your environment and look for people who have experienced the same thing that you have or who are going through the same process as you are, like I find
Mhm.
that these people are so important to be a part of your support system because they will truly understand the shoes that you're
Mhm.
walking in. And
Yes,
I
100%.
truly believe that when you're able to relate to someone, when you have
Mhm.
that, oh, I know exactly what you're talking about because I did that. I think there's a lot of power in relatability. And I think that can be
Mhm.
so healing, in the moment for the experience that you are going through. So
Right.
trying to find, avenues or communities where, they are the same type of individuals that are going through the same thing that you are can be also the right support to have when you're going through your journey. Another thing
Mhm.
about me, Chris, is when I felt lost a little bit about like, well who can I rely on for support? Like who can I count on? I did find groups that were specifically for gay men that
Mhm.
were having children through surrogacy. And so I
Right.
joined one of these groups, and in joining one of these groups, I found out that there was people, relatively close in my vicinity that were going through surrogacy. There were other gay couples that had no idea that they were there. And
Right.
going through my journey and having them be there for me was so instrumental
Mhm, mhm.
to the process. And there are so many organizations that provide these types of communities and resources for all types of individuals, for gay individuals, for heterosexual individuals, for all types
Right.
of individuals. And I think this would be great ways to build
Mhm.
support and community.
Mhm. Right. Yeah, absolutely. I think, I can really relate to what you're saying. A lot of intended parents, when I talk to intended parents, some of them, I can't say a lot, but some intended parents definitely, mention things like, oh, this is what I want to do, this is what I need to do because either I can't carry a child, or I can't carry pregnancy, or this is just something I need. I know that I want to be a parent in this lifetime, but I know some family members, especially maybe close family members, are not supportive, and I don't know if this is something I should do. And I always tell them, this is your life and this is your decision. And yes, there may be people who do not support your decision or your choice, but it's no different than, your parents not approve of your career, your choice of career, not approve of who you're dating. But in the end of the day, you just have to ask yourself, is this something I want to do? Like, with those factors aside, is this something I am sure I want to be and do in this lifetime? Do I have the desire to be a parent? And if you do, and I say you really should do it for yourself and figure out, obviously have a support system. If you know, especially someone in your family, in your friend group who may not be super supportive, figure out how to work around that. But I always encourage intended parents to really think about what is best for them, because surrogacy and building family, there is absolutely nothing wrong with building your family with through surrogacy or egg donation. It's 100% ethical, it's legal, but I understand people have different opinions. People may be judgmental, but in the end of the day, it is your life, and the people who are judging you are not going to bring a child, or they're not going to make you a parent just because they don't approve of surrogacy or egg donation. So think about what is the best for yourself, and, utilize the people who do support you and all of the resources you have around you.
Yeah, absolutely, Chris. This is, when you're going through fertility, anything related to IVF, surrogacy, just, building your family through assisted reproduction, it's such a vulnerable place to be in.
Mhm,
And so if you think about it that way, like you want to have those people that are going to provide that cushion for you to make you feel very comfortable and safe. Because
mhm,
you know, there's a lot that comes with building your family in this way. And nothing about this is easy. And
mhm,
every decision that you have to make has challenges. And
mhm.
so having the people that are going to provide that cushion for you to feel like you can just relax a little bit,
Right.
that's important. And that's the support that you want to have. So when you're looking for
Mhm,
support, that's what you want to have. That's how you know that's the
mhm.
right support.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. So the next question I have is more about, you and professionals like you. What role does a counselor like you play in this, family building journey? And how early should someone consider bringing a mental health professional into their process?
Yeah, great question. I feel like I've been talking about this recently. And so, you know, my opinion is that a mental health provider should come in very early in the process, before any agreements are signed, just to ensure that everyone understands, their role in this process, and the
Right.
emotional implications that come with, surrogacy and egg donation and sperm donation and all of that. And so, when you're thinking about the counselor and what role they play, well, I feel that their role is very vital because they play a part in preparation.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Us mental health providers, excuse me, we help people and individuals and couples process their
Right.
emotions and
Yeah.
trying to understand what the unique dynamics are of surrogacy, emotional preparation, preparation for legal aspects, medical procedures. We're
Mm-hmm.
giving you an overall like view of like what it might look like from start to finish, and being able to point out like potential setbacks and pitfalls that you may encounter with. So
Mm-hmm.
the counselor's role or the mental health provider's role is to prepare. It's also their role is to help facilitate, honest communication between the intended parents and
Mm-hmm.
surrogates and egg donors if they're directed donors. But allowing for that healthy establishment of boundaries and how do you manage expectations around the relationship and communication. We've been
Mhm.
talking a lot about emotional support. Well, part of the role of a mental health provider is to provide that emotional support, allowing the space for individuals to process their grief, their loss, anxiety, any emotional challenges that may arise during the surrogacy journey. Um, Sometimes a mental health provider can also, serve as a mediator, for example, in helping resolve conflicts and ensuring that all
Mm.
parties feel heard, understood.
Mhm.
There are times when we have to facilitate joint sessions, and joint
Mhm.
sessions are very much recommended by the American
Right.
Society for Reproductive Medicine. And so
Mhm.
these facilitations of these meetings can help both parties just ensure we're all on the same page,
Yep.
we understand what the expectations are to minimize risk and conflicts that they may encourage I'm sorry not encourage but experience. um, Now another big important thing is education. I mentioned this earlier on, is that education is so important, so we provide education so that people understand, again,
Mhm.
what they're signing up for, so they can provide
Right.
informed consent,
Yep.
and make informed decisions.
Mhm.
And of course, the role of an evaluators too. Like if we're meeting with a surrogate or an egg donor, we're really trying to evaluate, the emotional and psychological preparedness for these individuals. Like, are they, able to, move forward with this process based on
Right.
how they're presenting emotionally, psychologically, and understanding, the implications that come with the overall process.
Right, right. Okay, yeah, thank you. I really appreciate how you talked about, not just what you do and how you help intended parents, but also just the different needs in terms of emotional support intended parents need and surrogates need and egg donors need. They may not, it's not going to be like a cookie cutter type of support for them. So intended parents, like you said, for you, it was very, very helpful for you to talk to other gay men who are also going through surrogacy or who became parents via surrogacy because they're the ones that understand your situation and understand the challenges you may be facing, and versus the support for a surrogate is going to look very differently. And at FSC we do have a very, very, very strong support group for all of our surrogates, and it doesn't matter what parents are working with. If you're a surrogate, you're invited to join the group, and we do not mix the group with intended parents just because this is a safe space for surrogates to talk about. They could talk about the challenges they're facing in their journey with other surrogates who may be able to relate to that. And then we obviously have mental health professional in that group to facilitate those meetings and to contribute to the discussion. So I think it is very, very important for each individual to identify what is what your needs are. And I also agree, we always encourage especially intended parents to talk to a mental health professional as early as possible. If you're just thinking about surrogacy, talk to a mental health professional and just simply learn about what are the possible challenges you may be facing emotionally throughout this process. And you should be mentally ready to begin this journey before you jump on and just be like, I want to have a child in a year. So this is very, very important. And again, I cannot emphasize this enough. If you're even just thinking about building your family through surrogacy or egg donation, talk to all of the professionals before you just decide I'm going to do this and now I'm going to talk to people. Like, talk to a mental health professional, talk to an attorney, talk to an IVF clinic, talk to a surrogacy agency. Truly understand what the process looks like and what potential challenges you may be facing. And I think that is going to be extremely helpful. And so now, do you mind sharing an example, obviously confidential, where professional emotional support made a major positive impact on someone's family building experience?
Yeah. Um,
Sorry, I'm putting you on the spot.
there's so I'm just trying to find like what would be the best example here to present to you. I'm trying to think of the any
Hmm.
cases that I've been recently dealing with. I think when it comes to gestational carriers,
Hmm.
one of the things that was very beneficial for meeting with me or someone on my team has been the part of like providing education to the gestational carrier about like when there is an unsuccessful transfer or there is a
Yeah.
miscarriage,
Hmm.
and just kind of letting them understand that something like that isn't their fault. And it's very
Hmm.
common for gestational carriers to assume all the responsibility of that loss. And
Right.
in being able to talk to them about like this this wasn't your doing, like this isn't something for you to take on,
Hmm.
because that could be a big burden to carry. And so
Absolutely.
having talked to gestational carriers about this and letting them know that it isn't their responsibility to carry it's okay to feel emotions. I
Mm-hmm.
mean they're human, and they may feel disappointed, they may
Hmm.
feel sad for the intended parents, but for them to say like I'm at fault for this, that's
Hmm.
where when we came in to provide information about why this isn't their responsibility, and seeing the surrogates like face like lighten up and be like, oh, like I've never thought about it that way.
Right.
That
Wow.
I feel like was a very positive experience, to have had, to know that our meeting was able to allow her to give herself permission to like not take on something that wasn't hers, because
Hmm.
she was also thinking about not only do I have this burden and I feel guilty and I'm blaming myself for this not working out, but I'm
Hmm.
also like now thinking of the anxiety that I'm feeling because I'm going to go into another embryo transfer in a short period of time, and what if
Hmm.
I fail again, right?
Hmm.
And so having that conversation with them, really made a big difference for her, and having more of a positive perspective going into it again and feeling like a sigh of relief, uh, because they were able to understand, like, what, I did everything that I
Right.
could to make this happen, and even though it did not, the outcome wasn't what we were expecting. It's not my
Hmm.
fault, and
Right.
I'm okay.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a beautiful story, such a beautiful example. Thank you so much for sharing. Just like I mentioned earlier, I think, all these surrogates, well, I should say, qualified surrogates, they truly are such just beautiful souls. They come into this wanting to help other people have, build their family and enjoy, or experience the joy as a parent like they have already, because, surrogates must have delivered their own child or children before, so they're all parents and they just truly want to help other people experience that joy as well. And they have the best intention. Yes, of course, there are some, sometimes intended parents ask, oh, how do I know, surrogate is not just in it for money? How do I know she actually cares? For the ones that are just in it for money and doesn't even care about the intended parents, doesn't even care about helping other people, they're going to get disqualified pretty early on through, psychological evaluation and from our interviews by talking with her. And, that really shows early on. So I do think the eligible surrogates, they are truly, beautiful souls. And for them to feel the guilt and to just because something unexpected happens and for them to take on the blame, it is just heartbreaking to see. And I'm just so glad there are professionals like you out there helping them cope with that and helping them realize, okay, that is not their fault, because there could be so many factors. And we work in the industry, we know that the quality of the embryo is actually the biggest factor of whether or not an embryo transfer is going to be successful. And it also has a lot to do with whether, if there's a miscarriage, and the quality of the embryo is a huge factor as well. So I think it is very, very important that, you are helping surrogates in difficult situations realize that it's not their fault and they don't need to blame themselves.
Yeah, it's a really
Hmm.
hard thing to have to carry. And so, um,
Absolutely.
yeah, so again, this is why, emotional support, mental health support is so important with this, because there's risk at every angle with, building
Right.
your family through surrogacy. And while we try to do our best to make sure that we're aware of all of the possibilities, you just don't
Mhm,
know.
mhm,
You just don't know what to
mhm.
expect. And so as
Right.
much preparation that you can have is really, ideal.
Absolutely. So, my next question is, I'm not trying to talk about anything too negative, but it's also important for us to know that, sometimes people are not getting the support they need. Maybe they don't even realize they need the support and they just don't have the support they need. What are some of the red flags or signs that someone may not be getting the support they need? And whether, I think this will be helpful for either intended parents who are going through this or who want to go through this, or just people around them, or it could be surrogates too, egg donors. Like maybe it may not necessarily be the person going through this. It could be the people around them. It's important for them to know that, what the signs may be if someone is not getting the support they need, so people can help them. And also, what should they do about it if they're not getting the support?
Yeah, yeah. Um, I think that when we're talking about recognizing signs, whether someone's receiving support or not, I
Hmm.
don't know that I have an exact answer for that. But
Hmm.
what I can say is that when you are trying to build like your support system, no
Hmm.
one's really going to know what you're going through unless you are
Right.
sharing with them what you're going through, right?
Yes. Yes.
And so some of the things that I bring up in my sessions is like, when you're building your support, like you want to, whoever you identify as your support system, you want to be letting them know, hey, like this is what we're going to be going through. This is the process that we're expected to go through. It might be
Hmm.
challenging for me. So you may want to share, like, I may be reaching out to you once in a while just to get some support, or being able to say, I'm not someone who usually reaches out to people for support, but I want to let you know this is what I'm going through, so maybe you can check in with me like every so often. That way, you can know that I'm okay, but also it's going to, provide some type of like accountability on my end to be able to share information so that you know where I'm at. Because I think that the best way how we intended parents or surrogates, egg donors, the best type of support that we can get is when we're sharing with them, this is what I need from you, so then that way that the other party is able to really receive concretely like what it is that we want for support, so that when
Hmm.
they do it, they're able to meet our needs and we're able to feel like we are being supported. So
Right.
you know again, I think understanding like what some of our concerns may be, our anxieties might be, being able to voice those things out to our support system so that our support system can understand what our struggle may be, so that they understand when to come in or how to come in.
Mm.
I think it is something that is important to understand. Um, so I don't know exactly like what, like, again, like the signs are if someone who's not receiving support, but maybe
Mm.
as professionals, or if you're on the surrogacy agency side, and you understand that maybe your surrogate is struggling,
Right.
um,
Yeah.
and you're checking in to see, like, do you have someone, and do you have a support system in place?
Mm.
Because one of the things that I have realized too,
Hmm.
when I meet with gestational carriers specifically for therapy sessions or support sessions, is that they don't have the support. They didn't build the support
Okay.
that they were encouraged to do, or
Okay.
that the people that they identified, and a lot of the time
Hmm.
it's family, my mom, my
Right.
dad, my sister, but they all have their own lives too, and they probably have their own
Yeah.
struggles. And so sometimes when they're
Right.
not available,
Hmm.
that might be very distressing to a gestational carrier. And so that's
Yeah.
why I say, you have to identify those in your family, but also let's go outside of that. Like, we want to build this a robust support system. So if
Hmm.
support person A is not available, you can go to support person B or support person C.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and so I've discovered through these sessions that their support system wasn't robust.
Mm.
And so again, going back to the beginning, is like, let's identify
Hmm.
individuals who are going to
Okay.
actually be there for you, and
Right.
you want to, you want to share with them, this is what I'm going to be doing. Can I rely
Right.
on you? This is what I need from you, so that you can build a strong support. I don't know if that answers your
Mhm.
question, Chris, but um, that's what I'm seeing right
I
now.
I absolutely love what you said about like, you need to open up and share with other people in order for them to support you because people can't support you if they don't know what you're going through. And I think infertility has been such a personal topic for so long, and I think the stigma is changing now. A lot more people are opening up about their experiences and their challenges, but still, I think to a lot of people that's such a personal topic. They may not want to talk about it with other people, even with close friends or family members. And but it is very important for for intended parents to know that if you don't talk about it, people don't know what you're going through, they cannot support you.
Yeah.
And you may not be getting what you need in order to keep moving forward. So, um,
And
it's
for
important.
yeah, and for that same reason, Chris, because fertility and fertility, it's such a very sensitive, topic, and there
Mhm.
has been some negative stigma surrounded by that, that people might be reluctant to sharing, right? And
Right,
I have
right.
met intended parents who are like, we're just keeping this to ourselves. Only me and my partner will support each other. And that's
Mm,
great, but you need support outside of your relational unit, because
yes,
the whole experience can also be very, straining to the marriage or the
absolutely,
relationship, right? So you want to get
absolutely.
additional support. And so
Right.
that's why earlier when I said, like, finding communities outside of your environment where you feel like,
Mhm.
okay, they don't really know me, but I'm able to share, or I hear somebody else's experience and relate to them. So in my meetings, when I do find people that are having a hard time with, like, being open or sharing their experience, which I totally respect and I understand the sensitivity to the situation and the topic, I'll provide resources, communities or organizations that will provide for, group support sessions for intended parents or gestational carriers, or, you know, building your family through egg donation, sperm donation, or whatever it is, and try to encourage them to utilize these resources so that they can connect and feel supported by other individuals who they may feel comfortable sharing with because they don't know them.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think we have talked a lot today, and I hope our audience really finds it helpful. And if anyone has any follow-up questions, then feel free to reach out to Family Source Consultants. Feel free to reach out to Joey Guzman, and we will all be happy to help you answer any questions you have. But Joey, before I let you go, one more question for you. Any advice for the intended parents out there who are, considering building their families through surrogacy or egg donation, as well as surrogates and egg donors who are just considering, or just people who are considering becoming a surrogate or egg donor? Do you have any general advice for them?
It's a great question. And I think the first thing that comes to my mind is, you know, patience. I think
Hmm.
when you're building your family through assisted reproduction, or you're the person that wants to help someone build their family through assisted reproduction, there's so many steps, and this
Right.
whole process is so anxiety provoking that my advice is, leaning into to patience, and trying to be, become friends with patience, because we have to be patient in this process. Not everything is going to always work out the first time. We might
Hmm.
experience setbacks, and
Yep.
while again that can be challenging, we want to be comfortable with being patient. And also, one big word of advice to intended parents specifically is that you may already know someone who's going through IVF or fertility, a journey. You may know someone who's already
Hmm.
going through surrogacy. And so while
Hmm.
you're able to learn from their experiences, try not to compare your experience to theirs,
That
because
is such
that's
a
going to bring up a
uh,
lot of anxiety. Um,
absolutely such a great piece of advice.
yeah, everybody's on
Yeah.
their own journey, and everybody's journey is unique.
Yep.
And not one journey is going to be the same. And just because this happened to one person doesn't mean it's going to happen to you. So
Hmm.
try to, focus your energy on your journey, and also be very kind to yourself. So
Mhm.
try to give yourself permission to relax a little bit. Try to give yourself permission to speak kindly to yourself about everything's going to be okay. Um, because it can be a really hard process and we can be very hard on ourselves.
100%, 100%. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Joey. It's such a pleasure to have you here today. And again, for everyone, for anyone who's listening out there, we hope you find today's podcast helpful. And if you do have any additional questions, please feel free to reach out to Family Source Consultants or Counseling with Joy and Associates. And we appreciate you. And goodbye, everyone.